In today's episode of Latinx Mentor, we welcome actor, coach, director, and creative powerhouse Feliz Ramirez. Feliz started in the business as a model in New York City and then rose to fame as a cast member of Eva Longoria's series Grand Hotel. Now, she shares her wealth of knowledge and experience with aspiring actors. Hi guys, welcome back to Latinx Mentor. My name is Dulce Espinosa. I'm here with Javier Espinosa, with Diego, and with our amazing guest, actress Feliz Ramirez.
Thank you, Miss Ramirez, or can I call you Feliz? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So when we were kind of looking at guests to invite, one of the things that we always like to look at is people that have done great things in their life. And you're so young, yet you've done so many great things in this area of acting that we feel like, man, not only are you already doing great things, but we're catching you on the way up. And so we thought, let's get her while we can.
Yeah, that was the exciting part.
But one of the things that we always try to think about is with our guests, if there's kids out there, young people, I should call them young people, not kids. If there's young people out there saying, hey, I'd like to get into acting. You've worked with Eva Longoria, you've worked in Hollywood, you've lived in New York. How does somebody that may not have all the resources in the world, how do they get into the acting world like you have?
Wow, huge question. We're going to start from the beginning when I was born. No. Honestly, every journey is different. And that's what I feel truly about an acting journey or, any career endeavor or pursuit that you want to do. It's always going to be different for everybody. And truly going into acting for me has been every single time, first of all, finding the passion and understanding, hey, I really want to do this, but not just want to do it, I need to do it for my soul, for my heart, for my, being creative was always something I grew up with. I did have a lot of great resources that started with my family.
How did you, if you have somebody here saying, hey, I'm creative too, how did you explore that?
There's so many ways to explore it. And if you say, hey, I'm creative too, you'll know how to do it because that's part of creating is creating ways, creating your resources. And how do you do that? Well, there's no right way to do it. I don't like saying there's a right way or there is the way to do it.
What is the way that you did it? Because you started with piano?
So I grew up in a family with 7 siblings. I'm one of 8 and I'm the second oldest. So I like to say that I was the second mom of my family. I was changing diapers all up until I graduated high school and I was gone for college when I went to New York City. And I also have my youngest sister who's graduating high school this year. Not even remember me as a sister who lived in San Antonio. So when
she probably thought you were the nanny.
Yeah, she just doesn't know me as a sister who lived here up until a couple of years ago when I bought a house and moved back here. When I started, living in my home with all of these creative minds, my dad was incredibly creative. My mom was creative. They both had video cameras attached to their hand for every step of my life. And I'm not kidding. I have my birth on camera.
Wow.
From my dad was filming in the room for my birth, my first birthday, and just random moments of my life as well. I have so many memories of being on camera, and even memories that I've long forgotten as a child, I now have because my dad was a videographer and he documented all of those, moments, put them in a hard drive for us and gave it back to us when we were older.
Now, my understanding is your dad
really
was in that area as well, in the area of videography.
Yeah, so my dad was a video creator, an artist. He was a musician. When you said piano, he put me in piano. Him and my mom also played guitar. So they were always in the choir at church. When I was growing up, I was singing. I have pictures of me singing with my older brother in the church choir. How old is...
When you started singing? When you started singing?
When I started singing, I must have been, since I could speak, probably I was singing in choir with them.
Wow.
But when I actually had a fondness for singing before acting, I was probably maybe 8 or 9 when I was just always singing. You know, Selena was like my dream idol, you know, my idol. And I was always singing, you know, at home. And, you know, my dad would record us and we would always just get in front of the camera and perform. So it was always, the creative resource was always available to me growing up. And yeah, there are a lot of families and a lot of homes that maybe don't have that level of creative, you know, support, but it's not impossible to find it yourself or find those spaces where you can express yourself creatively.
You said that you started, you found your love of singing before you found your love of acting. When did acting come into play? When were you, you know, thinking what you had said about it's good for your soul?
The first moment that I realized acting was a part of me was when I was 4 years old, and I booked, my dad was in advertising. When I, you know, growing up, I remember him, he owned an advertising agency in the 90s, late 80s, 90s. And I auditioned, he would take me to commercial auditions when I was a kid. And when I was 4, I booked my first commercial for Paragon Cable. It was a Spanish commercial. And I remember every part, that's probably one of the first memories I have as a child was, you know, getting wardrobe, getting fitted for a wardrobe. I had this white t-shirt with purple lavender flowers and lavender corduroy overalls. Mm-hmm. They did my hair, and I remember the crafty with all the snacks on the table, and I sat in a beanbag and I was flipping on the television, like with a sad face because I didn't have cable, but my dad left to go with his friends to watch cable. And we were just like really sad with my mom that we were at home with cable,
old antennas.
And I'll show you the commercial.
Yes, please.
But it was my first experience in front of the camera. And after that, both my mom and dad started throwing me out for taking me out to other auditions. And I was going in for a bunch of stuff until...
I was gonna say, before you move on from that, you know, one of the things that I think is important to kind of talk to our audience about is kind of like what you're saying, right? The creativity is gonna be expressed somehow. And if I can share a quick story. So my brothers and I grew up playing music. You know, we're guitarists and we played in the church. And I remember going to 7th grade and putting myself in band because I wanted to learn how to play the saxophone. So I go and I ask band instructor, oh yes, I want to play saxophone because I play with my brothers, and you know, I thought we were going to be this big Tejano band. But he says, okay, yeah, you know, we can lend you this saxophone for this semester. Go, well, next semester, what do I have to do? He goes, well, you're going to have to buy one. Well, how much are these? Well, he goes, they can be anywhere between $750 to $1,000. And I remember just going after that and dropping out of band because there was no way my parents were going to be able to buy me a saxophone, right? But what I did is I picked up a pencil and I started drawing because a pencil was cheap and paper was cheap. And I could draw and I could express my creativity that way. And I have a lot of friends that with me were very, very creative. And no matter what they had, the resources, they found a way for that creative outlet. So I want to make sure that our audience understands that it doesn't matter what your resources are. Maybe your dad is not a video production person that can put you in front, but most people have a cell phone camera now.
Absolutely.
Right? Most people can edit video on their phones.
On CapCut.
Yeah, on what?
On CapCut. Yeah,
Oh,
on the app, on all those apps. And what's so great is you know, I watched my father and my mom work on Final Cut, you know, Premiere, all of these video editing software on the computer, and learned how to do it myself. So that's what, you know, I have that experience, you know, on a basic level where I can make my own movies on, you know, he taught all of his kids how to do that because he loved making those movies. But now it's so accessible for everyone, and it's almost, I almost feel like it's required
to be on social media, right? Yes.
But I love that because I love how it provides a space for anyone to get everyone has a knife. Everyone has a smartphone with or a phone with a camera on it. You know, I've seen video, and it's not even about the quality as much as it is about the story and what your message is.
And that's what's so amazing, for a lot of young kids nowadays is when I was growing up, I mean, if you wanted to be on TV, on camera, anything, you had to go do the whole video production. You have to have a camera, editing, hope it gets on TV somehow. Now you can get your friends and do a short mini film and put it on YouTube, and God knows what's going to happen with that, right? And so that's the one message that I think is important for our audience is whatever your creative outlet is, there is a way to get it out into the world today.
And
right?
I think specifically talking about creativity, when you are that creative person, taking that opportunity that you have with all of these resources that we have accessible to us now as young people, and just letting yourself shine through and your passion shine through and exploring your creativity with all of these resources, I think is the important part. And that's what shows through. And that's typically what ends up, continuing. That's the longevity comes from that passion and creativity.
When that's the 4-year-old actress, that's the piano player,
yes.
That's the now guitar player, the singer, all that creativity that's being expressed.
And to circle back on going, finding that creative outlet, knowing that you're saying, how do you find these resources? They're literally right in front of you. You have to make them. You have to be the creator. You have to be the magician or make your life, see it in front of you. It's there. The resources are there. We just have to be able to notice that. And a lot of times we can block ourselves with saying, if I don't have a series regular role or a big job on a big network show, even after booking that show in 2018, I still had that mental, post Grand Hotel, I was having these emotional and these thoughts that, because of COVID, I can't do this, or because of this, I can't do this. Or I'm not where I wanted to be after that show. Like you said, we're catching you on the rise. I went up and then I went here, but
during
not,
COVID,
but it was more not necessarily maybe in a career chart, it looks different, but in my personal life, in my emotional life, which is all about what I do for my job, was so rocky and so I was going down.
Yes.
And I'm telling you this because going down is just a part of life, and it's so normal and it's so common for every single one of us to experience the low. And that's when the up starts to make more sense and to start happening naturally on its own. So I'm down here. Well, now all I can do is
go up.
Go up.
And not just go up, but I'm not saying anymore, I need ABC to book a job. I need, my next big job needs to come from my agent and manager. No, we just shot a short film last weekend in our home, which I've never, I'm just so proud and honored that I can say that we created something out of nothing. Yeah. We made, I was the lead. My fiance was the director. We brought in a bunch of creative artists in San Antonio and said, hey, do you want to be a part of this project? We want to make something happen. And I couldn't believe I could believe, but I was really, really overwhelmingly surprised at how many people started just showing up and being there. People that I wouldn't even expect to come because they wanted to be a part of something that was happening in their city, in their town. Yeah. So you don't have to be in LA. You don't have to be in New York. All you have to be is to see where you are now and what you can do with the resources that you have.
Yes, and I think the important thing about this message too is that you can be doing everything right, and you still don't have control over the entire situation. So COVID hits. I'm sure, that's not because you weren't working hard enough. That's not because you weren't talented enough. That's not because anything that you were doing. This is completely outside of your control, and yet it still has an impact on your career that you can't control. So the message there, I think, isn't darn, that's it. That was my only option. That was my only chance. And I'm going to, sit here in this low point. The message is, no, okay, I'm here. I recognize that. Now where can I go? What can I do?
And getting to that point of realization is not always the first moment that happens.
Yeah, you have to go through the grief stages.
Through the thought, those first initial thoughts of, my career is over. I mean, I've been drama. That's my profession. So it's like, no, and I
Your
have
poor
a Leo.
fiance, I can only imagine.
I'm also a Leo moon, so I'm very, very emotional and very much like, if I don't have the spotlight, it really hurts deep down in the heart. And I know that, but going into that new phase of the world and watching the world change in watching my career change and shift, it was a hard realization. And a lot of those initial thoughts were, I thought after that show it would be smooth sailing, and what was I even thinking? How did I even, it's comical to me to think that that was what, the new idea of my world was like perfect
Just
and easy, and I'm gonna book every job. And then it changed. Who would have thought a pandemic was right around the corner? And just so many other personal things in my life that hit really hard.
But one of the things before we move on is I'm a big proponent about reading books, right? And there's a book called Outliers, and it talks about who are the people that have kind of been really, really successful in certain areas. And I never forget, it says, most people know maybe 3 or 4 of Beethoven's songs. He wrote thousands of songs, and only 3 or 4 are known. And so it says one of the secrets of people that are very successful is they have a lot of material. Picasso did thousands and thousands of paintings, and most people only know probably 4 or 5 of his paintings. And so for a lot of young kids, if you're doing video on your phones, if you're doing movies on your phones, make 100 of them, because you never know. All it takes is that one to get caught, catch the attention of the right director, the right producer, whoever, that launches you to another area. And so that's one of the things is what we're talking about is there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, and you may get caught up here, with one film, and then you don't make anything for 5 years, but then all of a sudden you make this blockbuster. And the point is just to keep going, which is kind of the message you're sending.
And if we didn't have lows, how would the art suffer?
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
Like, how much would that art suffer?
But the best songs are written during breakups.
or breakdowns of the
really
world.
Yes, exactly.
And personal breakdowns. That's real.
Yeah.
That's real. Human struggle and human coming out of that. So the lows are absolutely necessary.
So we're talking about kind of your career in the sense that, you always were creative, had creative outlets. Share with us how you go from the creative outlets to just saying, you know what, I think I want to make this my career and I'm going to move to New York or LA, or like, how do you go from, this is something I dabble with.
Yeah, that's a scary
versus,
decision.
This is my life.
I always feel like for me, when I started, coming out of high school, it was really ingrained to me career. And yes, that was a big part of, deciding where I was going to go after high school. And I think for me, when I thought of New York, I thought, well, that's where a lot of careers are, especially in my field. I need to be there. As scared as I was, as terrified as I was, not knowing where the money was going to come. I probably had $500 in my account.
How old were you?
I was 19 when I moved to New York.
Wow. Through
college, I was not only was I acting, but I was also am a volleyball player, and I got a scholarship to play. I played in college. So that was my ticket to get me to a place where I could pursue acting.
Right.
Is that what you were looking for? Did you think, how am I going to get there? Okay, this is what I can do. I know that I'm, a very good volleyball player. I know that I can apply. Let me see what kind of scholarships I can get through volleyball.
Yes. So I stopped acting at some point in my preteens, thinking that this was too much for me. but it was always in the back of my head. It was always nagging at me to come back and, you need to do this, Feliz, you need to do this. I was a little intimidated in high school about talking about it, as we all are in that phase of our life. It can be very scary to come out and say, hey, I want to do this, and start getting rejected or made fun of by your peers. But when I got to the end of my high school career, I decided this is, the last 2 years of high school, I decided I'm going to take this seriously. I'm also love volleyball, and I was also taking volleyball very seriously. And our high school had a really, really great program. We made it to the state finals twice in my 4 years there. And I was, I was watching my career in athletics take off as well. A lot of people were letting me know, hey, and a lot of my teammates were finding scholarship, getting scholarships to big schools. So I was playing with a bunch of those, those girls who were going to big D1s. And that's when I realized, hey, I can go to a D1 to be in a location that I can also pursue my acting simultaneously. So I got very fortunate. And also just, a part about finding your way is trusting that it's going to happen and it's going to be there, not necessarily knowing how, letting go of the idea that you need to know how, because there are so many ways that opportunities will present themselves that you could never have imagined or you could have never thought of yourself. Right. So that's a part of the journey, is understanding that there are going to be moments, if you leave those doors open and say, hey, I know I'm going to go to New York. I don't know how to be an actor there. I'm not going to Juilliard or NYU Tisch or any of these big acting programs, but I do know how to find an acting class and start from there, and then go into, that's where you start networking and meeting other people. And then they say, hey, this class is great. And then you go there, and then they say, hey, we want you to be in an off-Broadway play. And then you start doing that. And then an agent's at the play. And then the agent says, hey, we really want to represent you for pilot season. And then you get thrown into all of these big network television pilots. And you start, oh, hey, we think you should meet some managers to help with helping you build your career. Then you get your manager. Then you're going in for all these auditions. Hey, you finally booked something. Oh, cool. Now we're moving to LA to shoot. Relocating, leaving New York and moving to LA and relocating to shoot for 4 or 5 months on a TV show.
So is that how it kind of happened for you?
That's exactly how it happened for me. I didn't know how it was going to before I always say that one of the biggest entries, or the biggest door I walked into, was probably in New York when I was taking classes under this incredible actor and my mentor, Paul Calderon. He lives in New York, and he's been in so many projects, and he teaches actors in New York City. I took one of his classes starting out. I got really lucky. An acting school that no longer exists in New York, and it was kind of one of those you would get on, you would just find through like a Google search. It was like one of the sponsored ads or something that, a lot of people who just wanted to be an actor started to just jump into. He was giving a class there, and that's where I ended up leaving that school to go take classes under him and his wife, Kathy Calderon. And they invited me to their theater company. When I got invited to their theater company, I was basically joining a group of working actors, a lot in theater in New York, but also TV and film. So
during this time, were you in school, doing schoolwork, doing volleyball, and then taking acting classes?
When I started fully committing to my acting career was when I graduated college. Before that, I was pretty much building a presence in New York, mostly commercially and print modeling, and I did a lot of modeling in the city, mostly because I fell into it because I was trying to find agents for commercial work. And a lot of times, the more meetings I would catch were modeling agencies and acting agencies.
But also, how did you pay for these things? You have to pay for the classes, I'm sure. And when you graduated from college, how did you continue supporting yourself in a city like New York and continue to go to these classes and have time for these auditions and all of this that you're talking about?
Yeah, it was a challenge for sure. I mean, being one of 8 kids and knowing that your parents are not going to help in that way, they're going to support you in every other way, which to me was way more valuable at the end of the day. But them just being my cheerleaders and being like, yes, you can do it. Like, go get that money, find out how to pay your bills in New York. First and foremost, I had to really decide what was worth it to spend on and what not to. I remember living in apartments with 4 girls in a 1-bedroom apartment and just cheating and making, like, that was my wall. That was my bed, that was my space, was that wall. And, the space of these apartments is no joke. It's a box. It's like you're living in a box. You're making these, you're giving and taking with this. You're deciding, okay, this is not my favorite place to live, but this is the time when I'm not even going to be at home anyway. And it's kind of, helps me like focus on just staying active in my communities outside of my apartment. But another way that first of all, the sports was very, very helpful because I didn't have to pay for college. I also, I came out of college so fortunate and no student debt, which I know how intense it is for so many people out there. So finding a niche and saying, I could be great. I'm also great at volleyball, at sports. So using that to really as a tool to help me find, and I sent out probably 50 emails finding people or colleges that would be interested in taking me.
And as a dad, I guess, I hear your story, right? And what I hear that resonates with me, that if it was talking to my kids, I would say, look at the discipline that Feliz had. Look, the discipline I'm sure you were good in volleyball, not because you went home and did nothing all day, but after school, but it's a lot of practice. The discipline to be good at this sport, the discipline to be good in acting, the discipline to write 50 emails, the discipline to say, I'm going to take acting classes. So there's a lot of kids out there that whether they're in San Antonio, they're in Houston, they're in Dallas, El Paso, wherever they're at, listening to this, I'm sure there's acting classes in their town.
Absolutely.
And if they have the discipline to say, hey, you know what, I really want to do this, where do I start? Like, to me, I'm hearing that is let me start with an acting class.
Yeah. And the discipline too, to when you were going through your story and your message of finding your way, it sounded more to me like you didn't find your way, you mapped your way. And you had said, you don't have to know exactly what to do to get there, but that doesn't mean that you sit and say, okay, well, I'll wait for something to find me. No, you mapped your way. You figured out, okay, how can I pay for school? This is how I can pay for school. Well, how can I get to these cities though, where I want to be to start my career? Well, I can go to school there and I can figure out this other way to pay for that school. So you continue through all of that. And then you say, all right, I don't know how to book a show, but I do know how to take acting classes. Like, so you continued to map your way. You had experienced already that the next step will present itself.
Yeah, the next step will present itself. And like you said, mapping, putting the points out. Mm-hmm. But maybe instead of like the point here and the point here and you're going straight, maybe you're doing all of this before you get to the point.
You're like, I don't know how to get from here to here, but I know how to get from here to here.
I'm putting these points here and it's okay if they shift. It's okay if they move. That's completely normal and fine. But just to talk about how you're saying, how did you pay for New York? I mean, ask me at 19 or 20, how are you paying? I wasn't like, I wasn't, I didn't feel like I was. I remember going to a coffee shop and someone coming up to me and saying, I'm an agent. You look like Natalie Portman and you can be an amazing actor, model. Here, join my thing. And me being so naive and ignorant about who's coming up to me in a coffee, a Connecticut muffin and saying, kind of looking a little like grungy, but like not, I mean, I don't have that filter yet at that age.
Yeah.
I'm just like, opportunity, like,
Yeah,
you know, and end up finding out that I, you know, losing like $500 to $700 for putting in money into a scam agent, which I've done before, which was, I'm not saying I regret it because I learned how to not do that again. But like that chunk of change was a big lot, you know, in that moment. I remember feeling like the end of the world was here, and I failed. That was it, you know. And that's just, now I'm thinking, wow, that was such an intense experience that I learned so much from, and makes me who I am today. And I got through it.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of my favorite things to ask. Because I'm not in drama, but sometimes I can be a little bit dramatic. And I've had quite a few of those moments where I'm like, this is the end of the world. I've ruined my life.
What do you think, Dave?
And you get a free pass.
Right, exactly. But it's definitely that those moments are the most important moments, I think. And in those moments, you're thinking, oh my God, can't there be another most important moment? But it's definitely what you learn in those situations, and you just don't let that get you, you know?
Again, thinking as a parent, how do you spot the scammers in that industry, in the acting industry, for people that may be looking at acting classes, or somebody's telling them, oh, I'm an agent? How do you spot scammers?
Is it a situation of, if it feels too good to be true, it is?
And that's the thing is, you have to, obviously everyone has their own intuition, and everyone can I would say really, the more you can connect with your intuition, and if you get a feeling about something, I would trust that more than anything. But also, you know, granted, you're having, you know, talk to mentors, get people that you trust, maybe have been in a similar situation as you, can ask questions for you that you can ask, okay, well, does this make sense? If I have to put money down now, is it, you know, a lot of actors coming up will say, should I pay money for an agent? No, never. You should, they make money off of you booking your first job, and they take percentage. So if an agent is saying you need to pay $700, $500 for an entry to be in our you know, our agency, no, because that's how they're making their money, is off of people who want to be getting into this. But truly, how do you spot a scammer? I almost feel like you have to get scammed first. You have to, because how can you know? How can you know if you, like, how can you know how to ride a bike if you don't fall off the bike, you know, and make a mistake? Like, it's okay to make a mistake. Obviously, I know there are some mistakes that are way more intense than others. You know, trust your judgment. Talk to people about it before you get into, you know, a situation that you start. If your gut is telling you get out of here, or this person is weird, or giving me weird vibes, trust that. You know, also communicate with other people. Find a mentor. Find somebody who you can ask questions first. I did that all the time, but I did get in situations that I did not feel safe in. And I'm not saying that I should have done something different. That was the situation I had at the time. That's the situation I personally felt at the young age, the young green age that I was at. That's what I had, and this is what I need to do to you know, I didn't have that specific go-to mentor during those times, and this was before I met, you know, the theater company, before I started like really diving into acting. This was like, you know, fresh in New York City, like, hey, I need some photos, so I'm gonna look for a photographer. And like,
is that when you were responding to the prince from Nairobi in the emails?
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh,
your distant cousin.
From Nairobi, yeah. No, but that's important, you know, that, like, to be aware of scammers in this field.
I think what's important to remember is, well, my philosophy is that everything happens for a reason, and you just have to find the reason for whatever you're going through. And I think that's also a really important way to go through life, is instead of just, you know, things happen and you get over it and you move on. Well, what can you learn from every situation, especially these really tough situations?
Yes. And if there is a moment of scammer or scamming, you know, that low moment, always finding that balance or trusting that nature will balance itself out, and you will get that, you know, yes, I experienced scammers and moments that I felt like there was no way out. that actually led me to finding mentors and finding people who could, I really had to get to that point to realize, oh, it's really important. And yes, like my parents were so helpful in everything, but they're not in New York City with me. They're not getting, random people talking to you every single day, knowing if you're green and knowing if they can take advantage of you. It's your responsibility to find those people. So whenever I did start taking classes or meeting people through my social networks, I would find, there were certain people that really stood out that I could trust. One of my acting teachers was one of those, like I mentioned in the beginning, who led me into my first agency.
And so that's, I guess, the importance of mentors in people's lives and whatever
Absolutely.
they're doing.
You should always find somebody who has experienced what you wish to experience, to almost emulate and find those, similarities in your life. Oh, well, Eva Longoria is one for me as well. I worked with her. I got to see her life and her, I watched her with her new baby. She was pregnant while she was shooting Grand Hotel. And
Wow.
I was watching this mother direct me, breastfeeding, directing us on set.
Incredible.
And I'm just soaking it all in about how and that really gave me this inspiration. Wow, you can do it all. You can actually do these things if you really put find those mentors, find that inspiration, and really just focus on that.
And you work hard towards it. And I think that also shows that you should be looking not at what people are telling you, but at what they're doing. And when you're picking your mentor, who are the people that you want to be doing what they are doing, when you get to that point, rather than you just want what they're telling you.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that we've been talking about is that people that have created great things do a lot of the same thing, whether it's a lot of paintings, a lot of music, and only 2 or 3 are what it gets known. And it sounds like to be in the acting world, it's kind of similar. You had to go through a lot of rejection to get that one shot.
Yeah. So I don't even know how many auditions I've had in my career. Probably at least, 3,000 to 5,000 auditions throughout my whole life. And especially, going into these intense auditions where you're preparing 12 pages of script, from a movie or a TV show or something, you really sink your teeth into these characters to truly be believed as the character. You really, as an actor, you really go into those characters, regardless of if you are going to book the job or not. You put yourself into that.
And then you're told no.
And then, well, you're not told no, you're just not told. As an actor, you have to accept the process of auditions, which is you submit your audition and you wipe your hands clean. And the best case scenario is you get a phone call that they loved your tape and they want to see you again, or they want to book you. The worst case scenario is you just hear crickets and you don't hear anything.
So what's the message you can give to our viewers about rejection?
When I get an audition, it's me booking myself for this job. And so when I look at it in my head as a job that I have booked. Feliz has booked Feliz for an audition. Mm-hmm. So, because I produce the auditions now with self-taping and everything. So now I have already booked the job when I'm taping, and then I submit it, and I'm done with the job. I'm done with the job.
So you change the way that you look at the process. It's not rejection. It is, you are framing it the way that you are framing it. You're putting in the work, and then Yeah,
and I'm also, ABC is not my boss. I am my boss. I have a product that I'm showing clients, and they decide if it's for them or not. Yeah. But I still employ myself. I still, I am the one who tells myself if you're going to work or not Eva Longoria, not network or my agent or anyone.
That's part of the process for somebody that wants to get into this industry is like you, right? They may do 5,000 auditions or bookings or the video, or I don't know what the terminology is.
Auditions.
And maybe get one good, solid job out of that. And that just is part of the industry.
That's part of the process. Every actor goes through it. And if they didn't, they are very, very lucky. Yeah. The more you can accept it and embrace it, the easier your world is going to be, the better your acting is going to be, probably, because you're not so consumed with needing to book the job. And truly that type of, and to talk about Outlier, the other book that is great is Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. And it talks about how when you look at someone, you have this 2-second, 3-second snap judgment of if this person, who this person is. You know, you have that snap judgment in a blink of an eye. You know about this person. So saying that with casting directors, the first 2 seconds or 3 seconds they see your tape, they have the snap judgment as well. That's just an instinct for an animal instinct, right? And when you are in your head, I need to book this job. This is the one. I'll do anything for this job. And like I was, you know, and like a lot of actors starting out are, that energy is so potent, and it seeps through every pore when you're auditioning, that a casting director, because you understand how many thousands of tapes they watch every day. They know when an actor is like trying really hard to be great, and then they know when that's Carolina.
Yeah, that's a natural.
It's not even an actor anymore. It's the person on the script. It's and that's when you don't want a casting director to say, Feliz was really great at that, or Feliz was really great at acting that character. You want them to say, that's Carolina. Yeah. They don't even know who you are. It doesn't even matter. You're not even in the room. Yeah.
So instead of expending that energy on, I need this job, put that energy into
your character. Your character is a human. Yes. Your character deserves the space and time and life that that's what the storyteller wants, right? Is the person. It's you imagine you wrote a story about Dulce, and you're casting Dulce, and
I don't care who the person is. I want to see Dulce.
You want to see Dulce. Yeah. You want to see her. And if an actor was just trying to be great and pushing for Dulce, and you'll see it when you sit at that side of the table, because we sat on the casting side frequently for different projects. And when I sit on the casting side of the table, I learn more about my acting than I would be acting, because I see other actors, and I see some actors who are so in service to Dulce, the character, that I've lost who that is. And that's when, in that blink second, you know that person has given service to the story versus focusing on their career and focusing on what they need to book. Mm-hmm. That energy does not book.
So, you talked about Eva Longoria, and I know that you work with her in Grand Hotel. Can you get that transition for us from New York City? How do you get that, pilot or the interview, whatever, that brought you
audition.
to LA? Yes, thank you. The audition.
To this day, I still...
No, it's a whatever. It's a whatever.
The audition.
The audition.
It's a very specific thing to acting.
So I was, at the time I was living in New York City, I was auditioning heavily for pilot season, which is the season where you audition, where all the new TV shows wrote their first episode, and they're all trying to get picked up by big networks so that they can have a full season on air. And I was it was my second year in pilot season, and I was going in probably for 5 auditions per week between mid-January through end of March. And I had experienced 1 year of this kind of intensity on this level, and that was when I signed with my first agent, my legit agent, who threw me straight in. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I was going in for all of these really big shows, and I just kept going into auditions like I would normally if I was, going in for commercial or whatever I was doing. So then I started, so at the time I was going in for ABC very, very frequently for every show that they had. And Grand Hotel came in my inbox, auditioned for one of the characters, got a call back to re-audition for a different character, late February. The first day of shooting for pilots normally is before COVID, was around March 15th. So by the mid-March, you can gauge whether or not you book a pilot. They never tell you if you're not going to book. If you audition for something, you never find out if you didn't book. You only find out if you do. So when you audition for something, you could hear nothing. I've had friends of mine who heard nothing for 8 months or a year, and then they get a call. They're like, "Hey, we want you for this movie."
Oh, wow.
So, and then they're just like, "Oh, okay, great." It's been almost a year. And a lot of times the reason for that is because production could have stopped for whatever reason. You don't know what's going on the back end. You're just auditioning for something. You're getting an appointment and you're sending it in, and then you're just letting it go. You know.
And what is an audition like? Like for people that may be wanting that information, do you go into a room and there's people there? Or
Before COVID, currently now, my audition process is 100% self-tape. Self-tape is where you tape at home. You get an appointment for the same type of role that you would go in person normally, but you would tape in front of a blank wall and deliver the scenes. You get a reader, you put a camera in front of you, you work this out. You send the tape into your agent. They submit it to casting. Casting decides to push you further to production. That is the way things are now because of COVID, and it hasn't gone back to in-person audition, which is a big reason why I left LA. And a lot of actors did leave LA and New York because you can audition now from anywhere virtually. And most of my final rounds of audition process, it would be audition, callback, maybe another callback, producer session, which is still a callback. Chemistry read, you would read with another actor who is the lead of the show or in the show. Final round, screen test. And I'm not saying that's how it happens every time. Sometimes you go from, one audition to booked job. Yeah. Sometimes you go one audition to screen test, which means you're the final 1 or 2 or 3 to book this job.
How did it happen with Grand Hotel?
Whew. So... Grand Hotel, I auditioned, I got a callback for, this was in person. So I would go to ABC Studios in New York, and I went to my second callback, which was a different character. I didn't hear anything after that for probably like 2 weeks, about 2 weeks. So that was end of February. By March 9th or 10th, it was a Friday, and I had already realized that I didn't book anything for that season because everything's shooting. That like Friday was probably the last weekend you would get booked. Monday is the first day of all of the projects shooting all over the country. So I had already made like weekend plans to shoot actually I was playing in a volleyball tournament that weekend on Saturday in Long Island, which is 2 hours away from my apartment and from New York City. And that Friday, it got canceled. That Friday night, the tournament got canceled because there wasn't enough people. So I stayed in town on Saturday morning, slept in. I had an intense week, month. I had an intense month. I was going into ABC and to like all of the networks. I was going in probably 5 times a week while simultaneously working all of the jobs that I had previously booked for modeling and things like that. So I was running all over the city. And that Saturday I slept in, made some pancakes. By 11:30 a.m., I got a phone call from my manager, and she sounded like she was huffing and puffing and out of breath. And she said, "Hey, how fast can you get to ABC Studios? They want to see you again. They have new notes. You're going to go back in for Carolina. This is potentially going to be yours. You need to can you get there as fast as possible?" And I was just like, I can get there. Can you get there in an hour? No, I can't get there in an hour, but I could get there as fast as I can, which ended up being like 2 hours-ish. But I was like rushing, and one of the notes was they wanted me in a different wardrobe that I had chosen for my initial thing. And a lot of times that is just a simple note. They want to see you in a different, maybe in the characters more closely to what they had envisioned for the character. So I took their notes. I went back to ABC. normally an audition room is filled with 20 actors, probably all that look like you or similar to you. And I remember walking into ABC, checking into the office, and the doorman was saying, "Oh, finally, now I can leave because you got here." And I go, "Oh, am I the last one today?" And he's like, "You're the only one. This is why I had to come to work on a Saturday."
Oh my gosh.
And I said, "Okay, well."
I bet that was like a, oh my God,
yeah, I was like,
moment.
whoa. I was like, okay.
Sure glad I'm not playing volleyball.
It was,
no pressure.
And that was the thing too, is I was actually really freaked out at that whole realization that like I was not going to be in town.
Everything happens for a reason.
Exactly. So I got into the elevator, went up to the floor for casting. Whole room is pitch black. The hallway, the waiting room. This is normally vibrant. This is normally 20, people everywhere.
Were you thinking like, is this my like serial killer horror story? What's going on here?
It was such, I can see every moment. The hallway was pitch black, but there was one light at the end of the hallway, and it was Marcy Phillips, the ABC, head of ABC New York casting. She was just standing there. She's like, "Oh, you're here." Like she was just, and a lot of actors will tell you your relationship with casting, it's strange. Like it can be strange sometimes. I mean, yes, they're so great. They want you to succeed, but there's so much mental blocks that can happen with actors and casting directors that like, oh, I need them to love me and I need to be something that they want. And it can get very psychological with casting, and so for her to make me feel like I was like a friend of, it was almost like friends taping each other versus I need to prove myself in this moment. And this is like an executive meeting or something like that. It never felt like that with her. She took me into the room with her reader. So there was only her and her reader and me. And she even had wardrobe options for me to, she really wants her actors to succeed. Now, casting directors don't book you for the role. Producers book you for the role. Casting directors make a pile or a list of actors that they suggest you book for the role. But there are so many people who make that decision. So Eva Longoria, ultimately for Grand Hotel, would be on the board to choose final say who I want for this project, in addition to maybe one or two other producers. So when I tape in this room for an audition or a callback, you're in there 5 minutes minimum, maximum 15. I was in there for 1 hour, taping 3 scenes over and over and over again. Every time I would finish a tape, Marcy would say, "That's awesome. You did great. Let's try another one. Let's do it this way. That's great. Let's do another way. Let's do all of these different ways, give all of these different takes," because what was happening was the casting although I auditioned in New York City, the casting for Grand Hotel was taking place in Los Angeles. So New York office was sending my tapes to LA, or whoever New York they were saying, "Hey, these are the options that we have in New York." So at the time, I didn't know that the character that I played, Carolina, who's a twin sister, the twins on the show were originally nearly booked in LA. So they were the girls who were chosen in LA were screen tested. That means they signed contracts to book the job, negotiated deals, and were clear, like ready to go. They were ready to be done, and they picked 2 girls out there. Somebody on the final board decided otherwise, and there was some sort of back and forth between the final sayers, and they dropped the girls. When they dropped them, that's when I got a phone call or Marcy Phillips must have gotten the phone call from New York to say, "Hey, who do you got in New York? Yeah. We decided to change our mind." So they changed their mind last minute. That's when I got a phone call and said, "Hey," and Marcy immediately knew that I would be one of the options. So that's when I got the call to go back in. They said, "Okay, she sent my original tapes from the callback I had previously, and they probably said something like, "Okay, she seems okay, but I can't really tell. We want her to change her wardrobe. We want her to do ABCD."
So when you do that callback on Saturday, how long before you're in LA?
Well, Miami. We shot the pilot in Miami, and then we shot the whole show in LA, Manhattan Beach. But that took 2 days between Saturday, or sorry, 1 day, less than 24 hours, pretty much. So I walked out of ABC probably at like 4:35 p.m. that Saturday shooting with Marcy. Marcy said, if this doesn't book you, I don't know what will. I did everything I could because she wanted me to book the job.
Yeah, that's so sweet of her.
And loved it. As soon as I got out, my agents were call me immediately as soon as you get out. Okay, well, we've already negotiated. This is me talking to, okay, do you need a lawyer? They're already talking deals, just so you know, you're gonna sign contracts, blah, blah, blah. In my head, I thought that was another callback that I needed more rounds. So I said, when am I gonna have a screen test? Because a screen test is not as unofficial as what that was.
So, and that's the importance of agents for would-be actors, actresses that are looking into that industry is, once you do get booked, I mean, you got to have somebody that knows what the attorneys.
Oh yeah, and that's where at this level you have representation, somebody to vouch for you, and I have an agent and manager, so they both vouch for me and advise me on and I had never done this before, and I was also calling my mentors as well, aside from that. So I'm talking to my agents, they're saying, okay, this is the number, this is the negotiated deal. You have to sign all of this before you book the job. Just reminding you haven't booked it yet. We're still waiting to hear back. We'll let you know, obviously, as soon as possible. Yeah. So I said, okay, I go home. I'm like, okay. This is crazy. I'm going home to my apartment in Brooklyn. And I have a roommate, one of my volleyball players from college, teammates from college. She's freaking out more than I am, making me freak out even more. We buy a bottle of wine and we're just like, I can't go to sleep. Obviously, this is crazy. Mm-hmm. But we didn't hear anything that night. And so I'm just like, how do you go to sleep from a day like this? I go to sleep somehow, wake up 6 a.m, something like that. I'm just like, I can't go to sleep. I walk to a coffee shop. I just start walking. That morning, because I had so many jobs to support me throughout that time, I had a child care services job. I did a lot of babysitting and child care services in New York to help with, my bills. And I had a church child care service job that morning. And I told myself, I know that this is a lot of energy. I have to still go through my day and do me and not wait around. I'm not going to wait around biting my nails to see if I get a phone call. Because my reps were texting me the night before. Sorry, we still haven't heard anything.
So what time do you finally get to know?
So I go, I'm walking to work that morning at 9:30 in the morning. And that's a Sunday. I get a phone call from my manager, and my agent is also connected, and they both are slowly talking to me hey, how are you doing? I'm like, good, what's going on? And they're like, we're both here. Jed, you here? We wanted to tell you, we're so excited. You booked the job. Oh my God, that's and I was like, what? Crying. And then immediately called my dad and was like, puppy, I booked it. He screamed. And
so when we started
when
we started this show, you talked about that being your high.
Oh, that was my high. Yeah.
Is that in your I guess in the your career trajectory, you still have a lot of pages to write in your book. But so far, is that kind of where you have felt, this is it for me? This is it.
That was it. That was it. That was all the things I worked for. That was where I said I would go. I'm not stopping until I do this. Mm-hmm. That was that moment.
Right. Well, really quick, before we move on, you mentioned a lot of different people on your team. For our audience, kids who want to know what they're supposed to be looking out for, what is the difference between your agent, your manager, who was on your team?
My agent will, I started with an agent, and you always would normally start with an agent, but it could be different for everyone. But agents will really have a larger pool of clients and will be sending you most of the things that they think you'll fit for, but that come through their inbox. Okay. So let's say I'll get 5 auditions in a week and they're all due at the same time, yet to audition for 2 movies and 3 TV shows and have that amount of script that I have to like work on is ridiculous and unheard of and obscene. And like a manager would say, hey,
don't worry about this
choose the ones that
Yeah.
like let's narrow it down. Let's focus on what we really want in our career and decide which ones are more important. Because before my manager, I was probably giving 60 to 70% in 5 auditions for a week because I thought that was more beneficial to my career because I could book one of them versus giving 100% to 1 or 2 and then really, really giving the best quality to casting and casting falling in love with me.
So your manager is the one that you work directly with, and then
I work directly with both of them, but my manager focuses more on my personal journey and who I am, what I want to be doing, the projects. She really looks out for me. Let's say there's something that comes in with my agents that is in terms of career and moving forward, maybe it could feel for her a step backwards, or she would advise waiting for another project to come through. In my head, a lot of times I'll just take whatever comes because I'm just like let's get experience. And she'll say, whoa, we don't need to be doing that. There could be something that comes up that you don't want to lock yourself into a project for 10 years because, and then something comes along that's like so perfect, but you're contractually stuck on a project that you kind of liked 10 years ago. I was just very excited to get the job. I trusted that my manager and agent would really help me, advise me, and give me that confidence to know that I'll be taken care of. So, and especially like with my first job, most of the advice I was getting was, this is your first, like, let's just get through it and see, for negotiations and things. I know they helped me negotiate my contract a little up than what it was originally. So that was awesome. But these are all things that my manager and agents would do for me.
So when you're starting out in New York, just to be clear, you should really have your agent and your manager. And then once you're maybe booking jobs, that's when you can look for other members of your team that you might need as they come along.
You don't need to think about for anything further than that until jobs start coming in and manifesting. So
would that be the same for somebody that's living in San Antonio, in El Paso, in Dallas, Houston, that's trying to get into the acting world? Can they start with an agent and manager?
Yes, they can start with an agent. I have a partner, Contratista, whose home base is San Antonio, and they're an agency here in San Antonio.
And you also have an acting school now, right? Or you give acting lessons.
Yes, I do.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So my page currently is called Coach Feliz on Instagram, and that's where I post content and material about my acting career, or about tools for actors and to help actors self-tape, how to frame and how to light and for taping, for self-taping, and then the acting portion as well. And I post all of my upcoming classes on there. I have been working, partnering with an agency locally to have classes. So I do offer on-camera taping classes, and I really focus on the taping aspect of it.
So that's a great resource for anybody that's looking to get into acting is Coach Feliz?
Yes.
Coach Feliz on Instagram.
Yes.
And so that's a great resource to start. And I've been reading all this stuff around here, around Bastrop, Austin. They're doing production studios. A lot of the film industry is coming to Texas.
It's growing. It's growing exponentially. And I love being in San Antonio versus Austin because there are so many incredible, talented actors here, and they're looking for space, they're looking for those mentors. They're looking for those ways in. And I am just so fortunate that I'm able to provide that opportunity for them.
Okay, so now, we're talking about how much the film industry is coming a lot to Texas. Obviously, you're now in San Antonio. Can you describe that real quick? How you came, the transition from LA back to San Antonio, and what you're doing now? What's in the future?
So we wrapped Grand Hotel in Manhattan Beach, California in 2019. After a show comes out, the network decides if they're going to renew it for season 2. We didn't get renewed. We found out mid-October, I think, that we found out that we were not getting a season 2. So basically all of 2019 was a limbo phase of not knowing if we were going to be working, but also contractually being obligated for press and for promoting the show. So that was 2019 was just me focusing on promoting Grand Hotel. And then end of the year, when we got dropped, it's pretty dead by late November, early December for the holidays. But then the next pilot season was coming in 2020, which I was ready for and very excited about, and was going in just as heavily as I would normally, January and February. And then, March.
Yeah, the world shut down.
Just complete drop. But sending all, it's almost like going through that intensity of pilot season of what I was explaining earlier, and then just all of it just going, poof, and just evaporating into the ether. And that was 2020. And then going through the lockdown, I was living in Manhattan Beach at the time. So I was in this beautiful place, but it was also it was just terrifying for everybody.
Yeah.
So I stayed there for a year. I met my now fiance at the end of 2020. And I had actually, when 2021 came around, auditions were opening up, but it was all self-tape. So everything was me recording in my apartment or my house and submitting. I got very close to a network project that was a similar energy, kind of a similar show to Grand Hotel, a comedy. And I was screen tested for it, which was the final round. I was two or three actors left, and it went a different direction. Mm-hmm. So it went with someone else. That was my moment of deciding if I was going to stay in California or I was going to move out. And we were deciding, me and my partner were deciding, maybe we go to Mexico and just rent for cheap and live on the beach and, just play guitar. And because we were ready to get out of California. It was just so expensive. I was spending way too much money on rent for not even having anything industry related neat in person. It was all virtual anyway. So I was setting up my camera, my lights in my bedroom and then taking it down. And then I had another audition in a day or two. So now in San Antonio, I have it all up and I keep it up. And I have my own my self-tape studio where I give coaching lessons. I have a self-tape studio. I leave it all up. Whenever I have an audition, I go there, I tape it, I leave.
And is that the new reality for people that are trying to get kind of what we were talking earlier, the pilots, is the self-tape?
So pilot season, it's all kind of shaky, especially with the strikes, the SAG strikes, the union strikes for actors and writers that happened last year. We're all still, the industry is still picking itself up. And
it's like one hit after another.
It keeps getting better, right? It keeps hitting hard.
So let's say somebody wants to get into some of these pilot castings. What do you recommend? And they're living in San Antonio. Number one, come get acting classes from you. Number two, what would you recommend?
That's exactly what I would recommend. Start with one. You don't need to worry about two yet because when you start with one, then you reassess and then there's another one. Yeah. It's almost like it's like step one every time. Like you were saying earlier, create the map, but it's not necessarily 1, 2, 3 bingo. It's 1 point, and it's that one step every time.
Figure out what that one step is and then reassess once you've
because you don't know what's going to be there. So yeah,
but
exactly.
For somebody that wants to get into acting, would like to get onto a show, what would the multiple step ones be that you would advise?
I would say start with putting yourself in the situations that are going to get you that people, the like-minded people are in. So that step one could be an acting class. It could be a mixer. There's SA Film in town that they have always mixers for actors and industry creators to go to those events. Find, get on social media, connect with those people. That's step one. The next step I would say is see who you meet. what are those opportunities? Let's say you want to create something together. Like, what we did recently was bring creatives together to make something. Because if you want to be on a show, make your show. Yeah. Make your, if you want to get to that show, like you said, Picasso does, and Shakespeare and Beethoven, you are doing the thing that you want to be doing. So if you can do it, regardless of what level it is, who cares about that? And also looking at your acting career less about like the hierarchy of career and more about what, let's say, an artist would, like a painter would see their career as. It's almost that it's an art form, and you do it regardless of the money that you're making or the marks, the level that you're getting to. You're actually just making art. Mm-hmm. So if we can, as video creators and actors and performers, can make the content ourselves. I said, put it on TikTok or put it on YouTube or put it wherever you want. Then you're starting to continue to be in front of that camera. You're making it happen already. Right. So then from there, someone might see you on it in the internet and say, I really love you. There's a short film that I'm coming in. So then you start, okay, I would love to do a short film. I was doing hundreds of student films, hundreds of indie films in New York City, no pay, volunteering, being in front of the camera over and over and over and over and over again before I booked Grand Hotel. So
which is great experience too, so that you're not stepping on that stage, fresh and you don't know what you're doing, or you're scared, or like you have that experience behind a camera.
Yeah, and you always so the answer is, if you want to get to that point of booking that TV show, you need to get in front of the camera and be on some sort of project.
Whether that's YouTube, whether that's an indie film,
whether someone gave it to you, or whether you make it yourself, or you find the people who you would want to make something with and say, hey, I want to make something.
Which is easier than ever nowadays. I was just on YouTube. I find acting and cinema really interesting, but that's not my passion. But still, a video pops up where it's somebody saying how to shoot, how to shoot yourself cinematically. And it's somebody going through and how they film their life cinematically. And I'm like, wow, this actually looks so professional. And it's doable.
Yeah,
for someone normal.
I could do this. And I would even look up that stuff for myself, for my own content, how to do. So now I'm the video creator, and I'm not just the actor. I'm the producer, I'm the cinematographer, and the more I can learn about that side of it, and I talk to directors all the time, especially here locally too, who've taken acting classes of mine and said, wow, Feliz, I did not realize how much more confident I feel as a director knowing this about actors and knowing how to speak to feeling like I was an actor.
So being in that world, filming, if you want to be in the acting world, be in that world. And that doesn't mean Hollywood, that doesn't mean New York, that means whatever city you're in, whatever, right? I mean, if Diego can be on YouTube, look, say hi, Diego. If Diego can be on YouTube, like surely young kids can be on YouTube. He's like, you woke me up, Dad. But I mean, seriously, right? This show is going to be on YouTube. We're creating content, and it's not that we want to be actors. We want to help other kids that maybe want to be actors. Go put it on your cell phone, get it on YouTube, do whatever you can do. But just, I guess your message is, you want to be in this world, be in this world at whatever level you can be in it, right?
And the levels don't matter right now. Let go of the like, oh, I'm only here, or I want to be an actor, but no, if you want to be an actor, be it and do it and put yourself in those situations, make it happen. And then the doors will start open. You'll start to notice it's going to start happening. We're going to wake up one day and you're doing it, not realizing how you got there.
Like there might be this misconception that unlike other careers where you work towards your long-term goals, that when it comes to acting or singing or any kind of performance or talent, it just happens to you one day. And, if you're really talented and you're really lucky, somebody will discover you. And then all of a sudden you're on a big stage and you're super famous. No, it's the same as other careers. You have to work towards it constantly.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there are some lucky stories here and there, but
very rare.
I mean, as in every career, I feel like.
In every career too, you work towards something, and at the end, and the expectation doesn't get met, and then what happens? People get disappointed. So if you can focus on just actively doing it, letting go of the expectation, let it, like, if you have a goal or a timeline, that's okay, but be okay if it doesn't happen in your time frame.
Yeah. Maybe 40 years old, or maybe when you turn 50, you could be a famous actor. No.
I have friends who started at 40 years old and 50, and even late. There's so many famous actors who started so late, and it's that's what's so beautiful about acting is you see every face on television. Everybody can be. You can do it at any time.
So what's next for Feliz?
Woo! What's next, baby?
Oh,
Yay,
congratulations!
That's so exciting.
That's awesome.
That is so exciting.
Mama Boss is next. So we are preparing.
Do you plan to continue your acting career after the baby?
Absolutely. I'm doing it all the way through. So
And now it's going to be Feliz and Baby.
Yes.
You're going to go do joint auditions.
Oh yeah, a little actor.
When you
coming
talked
in.
about Eva Longoria having her baby on set, and you're gonna have a baby, and the only reason I bring it up is because there's a lot of young women that maybe think, once I have a baby, that's it, I gotta be a mom, and that's my only identity.
I was one of them. I was one of them who felt that way so deeply in my soul. I was like, never gonna get pregnant. I'm never gonna, And I watched my mom raise 8 children, and I was one of them raising them. I was one of the moms.
That's hard. Yes.
I was raising these children, and so it's so deeply ingrained in my psyche that I am taking care of children. And I did it all through New York. I didn't say that, but I paid my way, also babysitting all the time.
Right, but the point is that now you're gonna have your own baby, and that's not gonna derail your career.
I thought it would in my 20s. Right. I was so sure that I would never get pregnant until I was the Eva Longoria status. Like that's what I thought. But it just, everyone has their idea of what they, it started changing, obviously, with all of the world, conditions and shifts of the world. This past summer, it felt so, the timing just felt impeccable in our own way, in my personal relationship. And I was, it was clear to me. I also have friends that, really inspired me too, that are working actors who had a baby, and who, not just Eva, but girls and women who are in the biz as I am, in the same, going through the same things as I grew up in New York with them, and watching them have their children and just still do, watching all of these incredible women do both and rewrite the story that you have to choose which one.
Yes, yeah.
And I just thought that was so incredible. And the more that I leaned into my body screaming for me to make this happen, it just opened up so much more the love and passion and excitement in my life and also peace. Also, all this peace that's coming in from this creation that's happening,
for sure.
and not to mention that having this child, I know, is gonna create leaps and bounds of improvements in my acting. I'm sure.
The creativity,
the love, the type of love that I will be, that I'm going through, and this is all stuff for my acting career. If you want to really think, if I really think about it,
that's a great way to take everything that's in your life and put it into your.
Put it into your art, and it's my art. It's my art, and I'm so inspired by all the women who do both and say, I am the mom boss. I am the creator of my life, and so many people come up to me and that I've said I'm expecting, and they say, you're giving up your acting career, aren't you? Or you're never going to sleep, or you're never going to. And yes, I get it. Like, trust me, I lived in a house with 8 children. Like, I get it. But
it's doable.
But I can write the story the way I want to, and I can make that happen the way I want to.
And I think it's interesting because you keep bringing up that you were the second mom of 8 children, or your 7 siblings, and that is what turned you off from wanting to be a mom in your 20s and wanting your career instead. But the message that I'm hearing is I had to be a mom really young and, had to help raise my siblings, but I still went and pursued my career, and I still made it happen. And so now you want to be a mom in your own right, and you can still, you've already done it. So you can do it again, where you are a mom and you have your kids and you're an amazing, you're raising your kids the way that you want to, and you're getting everything out of your life, but you're not turning away your career. You know, you are still putting in that hard work.
It's part of it. It's part of the career.
Yeah.
So you've already done it, and now you can do it again.
Well, but I think the message, as we close with the show is, your life has been, I think, an example of, you can go chase what you want, but man, it's going to take a lot of work. And, I see that in your volleyball career, in your education, your acting, you're continuing now, you're going to have a baby, continue this. You've set up things in your house, you're doing acting classes. And I think that cannot be lost on young kids. You can have it, but you can't go home and watch Netflix every night. There's a night for that.
You might have to live in one room with a bunch of people.
It's going to take sacrifice.
Unless you're an actor and you need to watch 3 hours a day of television.
Yeah, exactly.
That's part of your process.
Yes.
Exactly.
There's always exceptions.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's how you got to work hard for what you want, right? You got to have the discipline. You got to have the hard work. You can't just desire it and hope somebody discovers you and you're this amazing person. You got to, like you say, start at your ground level. Start where you're at. Put yourself in that industry. Work hard. Study acting. Go to acting classes. Do what you got to do to get into this world. But it's not going to come without hard work. And I've seen that in your life, and I think that's a great message to send to the young kids.
Absolutely, yes. And thank you for having this platform to share that message. It's so powerful.
Thank you for joining us. Because, it would not be that powerful if we didn't have people like you willing to share what you've been through and what you've learned along the way.
It'd be kind of boring if it was just Dulce and I talking.
I know. It'd be like, so what does it take to be an actor?
I love the father-daughter. It's just it's so emotional for me too. It's really special.
It is very special. Yes. He learns a lot from me.
Yes,
I enjoy having my son Diego with me. No, thank you so much, Feliz. We really appreciate your time, and we wish you all the best success in the world.
And to you too.
Thank you so much.
For more content, please like and subscribe and follow us on all social media platforms at Latinx Mentor.